Welcome to the most important week of the year for the podcast industry. Welcome to Podcast Movement 2025.
For those of you that have not seen me yet, I'm Courtney Elmer. I'm the CEO and founder of PodLaunch, and I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker to you today because we all know that staying consistent is super important when it comes to podcasting. But what about when you don't have enough hours in a day? What about when you are solo podcasting and you're literally wearing all the hats yourself of talent and producer and editor and all of those things? Well, no one knows this better than Crystal Profit. She has published over how many episodes? 1,500 episodes. 1,500 episodes while running a business, while raising children, and she's here with some time management tips to help you streamline your production process and save time so you can actually get your content out there. Let's welcome Crystal to the stage.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Appreciate it. Can everybody hear me? Okay, my biggest fear is that your ears are gonna be bleeding because I'm very, very loud, but our technical table, they are like, no, we'll make sure that everybody's okay. So how's everybody feeling after lunch? I know, this is one of the hard ones because you're like, okay, I'm ready to really just go take a nap, but I promise we're gonna make this totally worth it. And before we get started, the title of the talk is 3 Time Management Tools to Avoid Podcast Burnout. You can raise your hand if you're brave enough, but has anyone here almost experienced burnout or had symptoms of burnout in the last 12 months? Anybody? Yes, I see multiple people, hands up, adamantly shaking their head. Yes, Crystal, please help us, please help us. Well, that's why we're here today. So my hope for you is that you will walk away with a clear perspective on your content and how you approach creating, whether it's your podcast, your YouTube, content of all sizes and shapes. But I thought I would quickly share a little bit about myself as a person, because yes, I'm a podcaster, I'm a content strategist, I'm a coach. I wear all these different hats, but sometimes at the end of the day, while I love podcasting and it is my passion, I don't have time to podcast. Does anybody else feel this? You love your show and you love your content, but sometimes you're like, guys, I just don't even have time to run my podcast. And so like Courtney said, I have published over 1,500 podcast episodes across multiple shows since I started in 2018. And I'm going to share with you what I've learned along the way and some of the tools and resources that have helped me not only continue publishing, but still love what I'm doing. So I wanted to share this with you quickly. It's all about content burnout isn't about not having enough time. It's about not protecting the time that you have for what matters most. And this is a very clear distinction that we're gonna see time and time again today throughout our time here together. But like we said earlier, I've published over 1,500 podcast episodes. I have partnered with so many incredible brands that are even here today in this room. And I'm so grateful for the longevity of my life as a creator. But at the end of the day, I have learned that it's not just about sitting down in your chair and hitting record. That's not enough to keep you sustainable, to keep you creating. And you do have to have a lot more focus in what you can do and achieve and have a little bit more motivation behind it. So here's our quick agenda today. I wish we had more time because we could talk about so many other things. I've actually been dubbed a content therapist or a podcast therapist. So we're gonna do a little therapy here today. I'm not gonna put anybody in the hot seat, but I am gonna make you feel a little uncomfortable, and that is intentional. But we're gonna talk about a weekly workflow that you can use to no longer feel burned out. I'm gonna share with you the only content system you will ever need. So once you leave here today, you're like, I got this. I know exactly what I'm gonna do next. And then we're gonna talk about the mindset shift and relationship that you need to have with your content. Now, like I said, I call myself I'm a content therapist. I'm a fake therapist. I have no license of any actual means to say that. But I do know that the relationship with your content can go a little stale, and we're gonna talk about how to fix that today. So let's first talk about a weekly workflow. How many of you, by show of hands, have ever waited until the very last second before your episode is supposed to be published to record, to edit, to plan it. And then you're like, oh my God, this is supposed to go live tomorrow. Yes, I see so many hands. Like, yes, yeah. This is so common and it happens a lot. And I don't want you to feel shame or like feel super bad about it, because I've done this too. This has happened to all of us. So when we talk about weekly workflows, there's this idea of having a perfect plan, right? We could walk into our week and say, oh, I'm going to have this perfectly put together desk and it's going to be so clean. But y'all, I live in the right hand. Like, I don't know if anybody else feels that way. Like, I might seem like I got it together, but this is where I live. And the reason why is because I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I have so many things happening in my life on a regular basis that I don't plan for a perfect week. I've actually figured out how to create a perfect plan for my week. And so I think that a lot of times people just say, well, life won't get in the way. I will put together my Google Calendar. I will do all these things to make sure I'm super organized, and nothing is going to stop that. But the spoiler is, life will always get in the way. So why are we pretending like it's not going to happen? Why do we think that, that dentist appointment that you forgot about, and if you try to reschedule it, it will take you months. It will take you months to get back on that calendar. I don't know why it takes so long with the dentist, but it just happens. Or if a kid gets sick, or suddenly you have a work emergency. This happens all the time. So what I encourage you to do instead is to plan for those interruptions into a weekly workflow and what that looks like. So like I said, and you may not be able to see this super well, this is just a screenshot of not only just our family stuff. I don't even have my work stuff on this calendar. This is, I'm the Uber for my kids right now. And if anybody's in that season of life, like, I'm just running kids all over town. Like, oh, you got basketball practice, you got to go to orchestra, you got to go here. Like, I'm all over the place. This is just a personal calendar screenshot. I don't have any time to do podcasting, because at the end of the day, I'm like, well, I also have to do client meetings and I have to make sure that I'm hitting all these other deadlines. So at the end of the day, what I have done, and what we even do as a family, because we're super nerdy this way, is we sit down every Sunday and we say, okay, what's on our calendar? And we look at the whole week, not just one day, not just what's happening on Monday. I look at the whole week and I say, okay, who has what? What are we doing? What can we move? What absolutely has to happen? And what's something that I can push off to next week? So if this is something you're not doing, looking just at your calendar on a regular basis, a week ahead, 7 days in advance, and saying, okay, I do have that dentist appointment that I didn't forget about because I looked at it ahead of time, and now I know I actually need to move that podcast recording that I thought I was going to do on a Tuesday. It needs to now happen on a Thursday. I know this is super, super simple, but we often overlook the simple things. So if you're not doing this on a regular basis, just take a peek at your calendar and see, what can I move? What are those non-negotiables that can, I need to even add more time to? But people always ask me about my tools. There's nothing fancy up here that I'm sure anyone in this room hasn't seen before. I use a Google Calendar because it integrates with my family life, it integrates with my business, it integrates in all the other apps that I use. I use Asana for my project management. There's Trello, there's Fiverr, there's ClickUp. Like, there's all these other tools that you can use, or you can hire people on Fiverr or something to set this up for you. And then Calendly, y'all, I know there's probably 50 other tools out there that do exactly what Calendly does, but I've been using it since 2018, and I got a really good price, and I'm super cheap, and I'm not going to pay for another one to start another one. So I use Calendly for scheduling. I use this to block my calendar and say I'm only available on these days of the week for this amount of time to schedule a podcast interview, or to have client calls, or for even myself to say, you know what, I just need to make myself not available on every Friday. I want every Friday off for the summer, or I want to take the whole summer off. When people ask me, how do you create without burnout? You have to have boundaries, and your tools should serve you and not overwhelm you. The best tool that someone could recommend to you is the one that you're going to use consistently. So that's tools and weekly workflows, but I want to talk to you about a creator that I was working with, and one of the things she said to me was, Crystal, my podcast is the biggest time suck of all the things that I'm doing. It's exhausting me, it's not fun, and I started digging like any good therapist does, right? I'm like, let's get to the root of the problem, what's actually happening. And it turns out she was having all these time blocks in her week, but then she was, okay, well, I sit down and I plan. And then I record, and then I edit it, and then I try to do camera graphics, and I try to do all of this in 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, now I know why you hate your podcast and you're ready to quit and you don't want to do this anymore. So whenever we talk about content systems, this is something that I'm so excited to teach you today, because this is, like I said earlier, it's the only one you're going to need. You're going to leave here today and be like, I'm so proud of myself. I know exactly what I need to do in my content. I just need to follow this simple 5-step system. And I'm not going to blow your mind with this, okay? This is not going to be something you're like, she is a genius. I cannot believe she came up with this on her own. This is likely something that you're already doing today, but you just needed a little nudge and some structure and how you're doing the things that I'm about to walk through. So I love this book, Greg McKeown. It's Essentialism. And what he says is if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And a lot of you may have calendars like I just showed you where it's just jam-packed with all this life stuff. Because we can't forget that, yes, maybe we're creators, we're podcasters, but you are people too. And you need to account for the things that need to happen in your life, whether it's walking your dog, it's getting in a workout, it's running to get your groceries. So everything that I'm going to show you really is so foundationally built around being a whole person and not just a creator. But if you're looking for a slide to screenshot, it's this one. Everyone take your phone out, take a picture of this one. You can look at all the details up there later. But this is what I call the PREPA method. So this is something that, again, is not rocket science. This is something that I just sat down one day. I was looking at all my checklists and my to-do list, and I was like, oh, I'm doing the same thing every single week. So it's plan, record, edit, publish, and market. But the difference is, when I look at these letters and these different things that I'm doing, each one has their own creative energy. So what do I mean by that? There's a problem with task switching, right? If people heard of this, you're like, oh, I can multitask. I can do 7 things at once. Well, it's actually killing your momentum. So if you have a 60-minute block of time in that beautiful weekly workflow that you put together and it's your perfect week, you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm going to plan. But what am I going to talk about? I don't know. I don't have any ideas, but that's okay. I can just hit record and I can ad-lib, but I'm starting and stopping and I don't really know what I'm talking about, and then I'm going on a bunch of tangents. What actually ends up being more time that I have to devote to editing and saying, what was I even talking about? This is a crap episode. What was I even talking about? This doesn't even make sense. So you spend so much time in all these different buckets when the reality is the solution is to double down on one thing. So when we look at the different stages of the PREPA method, and I'll show you exactly what this could look like if you were to implement this next week, but doubling down on one thing, if you were to say, okay, I have a 60-minute block to just plan. So I can be strategic. I give myself the space and the freedom to think about, what do I want to do? What do I want to talk about? What guests do I want to interview? What type of flow do I want to have? I could plan the rest of 2025. Like, what if you left here today and you had every episode that you needed to record through the rest of 2025, even into 2026? Like, how would you feel about that? It would be pretty amazing, right? If you knew that the next 60-minute block that you had on your calendar was just, I don't have to plan anything. I just have to sit my butt in a seat and hit record and start talking. That's pretty incredible, and it's very freeing. Same for editing, same with publishing, same with marketing. So stop bleeding your creative energy trying to fit all of these things into one 60-minute session or 20-minute session. I encourage you to really focus your energy on one piece of the PREPA method at one time, and you get so much further faster. When you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing and when, your creative brain is free to do what it does best, and that's create. So at the end of the day, like I said, you're not trying to fit a whole bunch of different tasks into a 15-minute block. Because I know some of you, you're like, I can do that. I'm a pro at this. I've recorded so many episodes. I can do this in 30 minutes. But then you're like, wait, I promised myself I was going to create more Canva graphics, and I thought I was going to do a soundbite, and then you find yourself, you're like, I don't even know how I ended up in Google and ChatGPT, but I was planning 4 other episodes, and I was just supposed to be recording. You have to get laser focused on what that looks like and use that energy in a very specific way. So this is the other slide. I encourage you to screenshot. Get your phones out and screenshot that slide, because this is exactly how you can implement the Prep'em process, the Prep'em method next week. So if you only had, let's say you have 5 hours a week to work on your podcast, what would you do on a Monday? You would sit down and you would plan however much time you needed in that 60-minute block. Maybe you develop your content calendar. Maybe you do some research. Maybe you write up some outlines so that then on Tuesday, you have another 60-minute block. You can sit down and actually record, because that's what you intended to do anyway, but you get caught up. I can't even tell you how many people tell me, I was sitting at my Google Doc and the cursor was just blinking at me. And I'm like, that's not planning an episode. That's just staring at your computer. And I need you to do more than that whenever you're sitting down to plan. So then you can plan, record, edit all those episodes at one time. So you're in that technical, heavily focused on how you want the format and the flow of your show to be. Publishing on Thursday could look like uploading, scheduling, doing all those things, marketing, thinking about how you want to create those Canva graphics or those marketing partnerships, or look at monetizing. But the beauty of the Prep'em method is that it scales to your schedule. So whether you have 5 hours or 50, you can use it. But when people ask me about batching, Crystal, how do you batch all your episodes? This is exactly how I do it. I tailor this. Whether it's 1 week, I only have 2 hours, I make sure and I focus my Prep'em method in the 2 hours. If I have 10 hours 1 week, so it can absolutely adjust to however you need it to. Okay, so we talked about workflows, we talked about content systems. You can have both of these figured out and still want to burn out. So the mindset piece is a really key thing that I think so many people overlook, because they're like, I got this. I've been podcasting for a while. I've been doing this. Most likely a lot of you here already have your podcast. And at the end of the day, I told you earlier, I'm your fake therapist. Hi. Now we're on the couch. We've dug through the childhood surface level trauma that you didn't want to talk about. And now we're going to get into the real stuff that you need to confront with your podcast. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes it's your approach. Maybe you're editing a 20-minute episode for 3 hours because perfectionism is holding you back. Am I creating content I'm excited about, or content I think I should share? Are you chasing trends or creating what I call the shoulding content? I said shoulding, everybody, okay? Shoulding content. That's when you start to burn out, when you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. I mean, I love saying this because, like any good therapist, I know if it's not you, it's them. It's them. It's your audience in some way, right? Maybe they're just draining your energy. And at the end of the day, one of the things that I find that I really stick by foundationally is not everyone deserves access to your energy. It's better to have 100 engaged listeners who truly love what you do than 1,000 people who drain you every single week. And then sometimes it's your capacity. Y'all, I've been podcasting since 2018. My life from then to 2025 looks drastically different. But some of you have been podcasting for a while and you've never updated your schedule. You have the same Calendly links out there. You let the same people grab your time, even though you hate it. You hate it. You're like, I gotta sit down and record another episode today. I wanted to take the summer off. I wanted to have all of December off. I take most of the summer and all of December off. I do no interviews. That's by design because I don't want to burn out. So you have to ask yourself these questions. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is rest and just say, I'm just going to take a pause. I will be back. I will see everybody in the next season, in the new year, whatever that looks like for you. But if you feel like you need to take a rest, please take a rest from your content and then come back. And then the last thing is this practical, tactical self-assessment. Ask yourself, you don't have to raise your hand, but sometimes you need to just do a little self-reflection. Is it your approach? Is it your audience? Is it your capacity? Are you honoring the season of life that you're in right now, or are you fighting against it? This is something I want everybody to consider whenever you leave here today. But I will wrap up with this because I know that we're getting close to time. By being honest about what's draining your creative energy, you don't just avoid burnout, you create space for what matters. What matters in your life, what matters in your content, what matters to your audience, what matters in your business, whatever that next thing is that you want to do. So, quick recap, I'm just gonna say this real fast. Value your time just as much as you value your content. When you do, you don't just avoid burnout, you create space for the work that actually moves your podcast forward. And that's just how you fall back in love with your content and keep creating for years to come. Whether you have hundreds of episodes in you or thousands of episodes, I encourage everybody to look at the relationship that they have with their content and evaluate it and say, what do I want to change? What do I want to keep the same? And how can I avoid burnout? So I see we have a question real fast. I put this up here. If you want a deep dive on the Prep 'em guide, you can take a screenshot of that. It just goes a few steps forward where you can look more into it. And if you have questions, I will be over here because we don't even have time for questions. But thank y'all so much for coming here today. And then here's how you can connect with me. I close everything with this. It's keep it up. We all have to start somewhere because no matter where you are in your journey, there's something else that you could be new at and improve on. And so thank y'all so much for joining me here today. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you so much. Speaking to our hearts here. It's so true. You know, podcasting is such a creative process, which takes energy. So thank you for helping us better manage ours. Awesome. Amazing. Awesome, you guys. Well, we will be right back here in 10 talking about everything you ever wanted to know about podcast networks. Is it a fit for you? Are you better off solo? Join us back here in 10 to find out. We'll see you then.